Welcome to the On the Rise podcast, where we talk about time freedom, passive investing through real estate, finance, mindset, and how to integrate your faith into your work. Let's dive in. Quick disclaimer as always, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I'm not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. Welcome to the On the Rise podcast. I'm your host, Nick Stromwall. This is the new Faith-Driven Leader series, a new series we're starting to help leaders learn how to incorporate their faith into their everyday work. So we're bringing on various guests that are connected to real estate to just hear stories about the trials, the problems that they're facing, and how they're bringing in their faith into their everyday work. We have an awesome guest today. Welcome to the podcast, Brittany DeRoche.
Hey guys, excited to be here.
Brittany is a wife, a mom of four, a cancer survivor, a heart failure survivor, a PE survivor, and more. Medically, she should have died 4 times, which shaped the resilience that she brings to work. She spent the last 6 years working for a church consulting company, and then the last 2.5 years leading childcare partnerships nationwide, and was freed. But God showed me the work wasn't done, so I founded Church Activation Strategies to help churches turn underutilized space into sustainable revenue. She supported more than 20 churches and helped unlock millions in projected ministry funding by guiding leaders through strategic childcare partnerships that serve families during the week and strengthen ministry long-term. Wow. This is going to be an exciting episode as we unpack all of this. But any gaps you'd want to fill in on the bio there? That's quite a bio.
I think the only thing I didn't include in there, I'm also a 5-time Ironman finisher. I ran my first 100-mile race 9 weeks pregnant before all of the medical hurdles. So I'm an endurance athlete behind the scenes and was told I'd never race again. Raced in September and trying to kind of rebuild on that as well. So.
Okay, so everyone's probably just heard that intro and really curious. Okay, wife, mom of 4, but probably what caught people's attention more than anything is should have died 4 times. Can you share a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so medically on paper, my doctors told me I should have died 4 times. I originally was diagnosed with cancer at 19. My first pregnancy saved my life. We found it. They removed a tumor the size of an ostrich egg, had it ruptured and spread. I would not be here today. So thankful for kind of being down that wrong path, getting caught up in a different season, having a kid out of high school, have learned to embrace that. She's kind of my guardian angel. So then we grew up together. From there is kind of what got me into my athletics and racing to to inspire people. Like, cancer sucks. It's a dark area, but you can keep going if you want to set goals. Let's get out there, get active. Don't let it consume you. Don't let it define you. From there, got into ultra running. I was told I'd never have kids again. And then my 9-year-old surprised us as I was training for my 100-mile race. I had a great pregnancy with her. I ran 50 Ks, 100 miles, training actively. At 33 weeks, my doctor was like, hey, let's slow down a little bit just to kind of let the baby not come too early. I actually had pregnancy-induced heart failure with that pregnancy, ironically. Had her, got home, went to the hospital for a headache, thought I had spinal fluid leaking from the spinal tap with the epidural. And it turns out that I was in full-blown heart failure. My heart function was at 15%. When I went back in, they didn't think I'd make it through the night. And this was 2 days before Christmas, 9 years ago. So it was really scary. New baby, 13-year-old at home, didn't know what was going on. Survived, kind of got back into my athletics from there. Kind of long story short, had a little bit of ups and downs. Didn't know where I was going with life, didn't know what I wanted to do as a vocation for work. That's where I ended up 6 years ago getting the job at the ministry consulting firm that I was working at. It was actually right after my wedding. So to kind of add to more of the hurdles in my story, the day after my husband and I got married, my friend who married us had a stroke. He was battling cancer. And I sat with him in the ICU for those 4 days. So my honeymoon was spent in the ICU, taking all the phone calls to people to say goodbye, and watched him pass. But there's a story I can circle back to on that when it comes to faith and well, I won't circle back. I will say it was that moment that I tangibly got to see God that day that he passed. Like I legit saw Jesus in that room heal my friend and him cross over. And it was just one of those moments where it's like, yes, I'm sad and I miss him, but at the same time, like I saw what God promises, that healing of that eternal life of just, he went home and it was amazing. So I hold on to that because I fell into a very dark depression after that, coming home, trying to manage like my wedding, a happy time, a sad time. How do I process this? Then COVID hit. And then I found out I was pregnant with our boy when I was told I wasn't supposed to have more babies. Um, that pregnancy came with its own complications. I had enough fluid for 3, so I know what it likes to feel like to carry triplets, and had an emergency C-section at 32 weeks to save his life and my life. Had I not, we both would have died. I had chromium amniotic separation, so they said if my water broke, we both wouldn't have made it. He would have died instantly, and I would have bled out. So it was really a really scary time, especially during COVID. From there, 2.5, almost 3 years ago, my cancer came back again. Told them we're done. I did have my 4th baby, so I'm kind of all over. Had a 4th baby in between all of that. That's where I feel like God has his jokes in terms of, hey, no one's going to tell you what my plan is for you. You're going to have another baby. Even though doctors told me no more babies, mom told me no more babies, everybody's like, don't have more kids. It kind of proves that God's plan is his plan, not ours. Had my 4th baby, then my cancer came back, had a full hysterectomy 2.5 years ago, and a complication was pulmonary embolisms. I went back to the hospital for chest pains. The doctor's like, it's just the gas that we put in your body, all the air to kind of blow everything out. Just keep doing the breathing exercises. You could go in if you want to. Had I not gone in, I had 2 large embolisms in my right lung, and I probably would have stroked out and died that night had I not gone in. So medically, I shouldn't be here, but I am, and I have a purpose, clearly. And I'll pause there.
When you share this story with people, like, are people's jaws just hitting the floor? Like, I'm listening to like trial after trial after trial and just amazed. It's amazing.
I sometimes wonder what's going through people's head. My husband made the comment, like, do you ever wonder if people are believing this? I said, oh, I question it all the time, but like, I'm not making it up. This is what I've been through. My husband calls me the modern female version of Job. Ironically, he's not a believer, but he knows Job's story and just the trial after trial after trial. Yeah, I didn't share it for a long time because I was not ashamed of it, but scared that it would be too much for people. And either they would not believe it or they would think I was one upping them. And really, my intentions are to say, hey, I get what you're going through sucks. I understand. How can I help? So I'm learning. I feel like God's leading me to share it more and talk more openly about it to really help inspire others. Why else would I still be here to have the story to tell?
So, at what point in the journey would you say like your faith became real to you?
Oh, I think it's always been there. I grew up Catholic. I would go to Mass every Sunday with my dad. I went through the sacraments growing up as well. So I feel like I created this anchor to my faith. When we moved from Colorado to Georgia, I did kind of veer away from the Catholic Church. And I wouldn't say my faith entirely. I didn't fully understand because I started going to a Baptist youth group just to make friends. And then I had a crazy Catholic aunt tell me I was going to hell for that. Again, I was probably 12, 13 years old. Like, hey, I just want friends. I'm going into middle school, high school. Like, what does Baptist mean? What is like, I knew what Catholicism was, but moved to the South, it was a little bit different. It never left. I enjoyed going to the youth group growing up. I always kind of had that tie back to reading Bible verses. My parents are strong Catholics. So it was more of like this roller coaster ride of it's there. I know I was baptized. Wait, I have a tie. So I always had that anchor. There were times where I questioned, like, okay, God, who did I kill in a past life? Like, is it because I was born on a Monday? Like, why all these hurdles? The anger was there. The why question was there. But I don't think I ever had a point in my life where I completely veered away from the faith. If anything, it was there kind of lingering and hanging like, okay, I know it's there. There's got to be a reason. But there wasn't this moment of, oh my gosh, I found my faith. I did at one point realize what it meant to be baptized. So I did actually get rebaptized and accepted Jesus as my savior. My dad didn't talk to me for about a month because in the Catholic world, that's kind of a sin. Didn't know that. Don't agree with that, because I think understanding and accepting Jesus as your savior means a lot more as an adult or an older kid who understands versus being an infant and baptized in the Catholic Church. So I understand the doctrines and both sides of it. But I think at the end of the day, just knowing that Jesus did die for us on the cross to save us, to have a home to go to is like, I don't care what denomination you are. If you believe that and accept that, there's nothing else.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Grace is so powerful, regardless of what type of church you go to. So thanks for sharing your story. And that's, truly remarkable, to have gone through each of those cancer diagnoses and then beating it and then having it come back and then near death multiple times. What was that like each of those times when you're in the hospital and they're basically like, you probably should have died and yet you made it through it. How did your faith help you in those trials?
I think it's knowing that I have a plan and a purpose. Clearly, I'm still here. It kind of goes back to, okay, well, if I'm enduring all this, what is my purpose? There was a lot of fear, though, like, okay, am I going to die? I remember being in the hospital. Even a year ago, I had chest pains, and I thought I had PEs again. So my husband, we called 911 because I couldn't walk out to the car, went to the hospital, sat in the emergency room, and I legit called my older daughter and was like, hey, I just want you to know I love you. They're backed up. They're not getting me in. I think I might have another PE. I don't know what's going to happen. My husband was scared, legit thought I was going to die again. It turns out I pulled a muscle and was having an anxiety attack. So it's the fear was always there. It doesn't really leave either. I mean, I'll get a tummy ache and feel something and be like, oh, is it cancer again? Um, I think going back to my faith, okay, God has a plan. There is a purpose. Clearly, I survived for a reason. And again, it kind of goes back to why I'm learning to actually share it, because I feel like it needs to be out there for others. So that way, while they're in that moment, sitting there, maybe in that hospital room or getting that diagnosis or fear of the unknown, like it sucks. The darkness sucks and it's scary. But at the same time, like God has a plan and he has a purpose, not to sound cliche, but it goes back to Jeremiah 29:11. I have a plan and a purpose for your life, and you have to hold on to that and believe it. And I think it helps create that light that pulls you out of that darkness when you're ready.
Yeah, that's really good. So, okay, now we could double click a lot. I think you're going to have to write the book because I think people are going to want to hear the longer version of the story. But obviously, those experiences have all produced, in your words, of resilience. I guess, at what point did you become a long distance runner? And was that always a part of your life, or was that after some of these trials that you went through?
It was definitely after. I grew up playing the violin. I tried softball, was okay at it. Tried track, was not fast. Wanted to be a runner like my dad. He inspired me to run, but he was a sprinter and I was not a sprinter. Um, I got into long distance running. I was 2009, so in my 20s. My uncle actually lost a bunch of weight, ran his first marathon. I was like, well, if he can do it, I can surely run a marathon. Signed up for one, went to it, didn't run it because I was scared. Then I got involved with team and training, knew how to train for a marathon, actually had a group of people, so I wasn't doing it alone. Went out, ran my first marathon in 2008, and I got hooked. Like, I wasn't fast. It took me probably 4+ hours, but it was just, I loved it. I don't know. And I think it's because I had that control of it was an endurance event. It hurt. It wasn't fun, but then I finished and it felt great. And it's similar to going through a cancer diagnosis. And this is before the heart failure and all the added stuff. Like, hey, it sucks, but then it gets better. And then you finish and you realize you survived it. And I think saying this now, those two worlds kind of tied together in that aspect. And then I got into doing century rides and then triathlons, jumped straight into a half Ironman. And I've done 5 full Ironmen. And I think that endurance ties back to that resilience of having been through what I've been through, even now getting back into it, surviving it, finishing it, and knowing that there's that light at the end.
My kids, my 14-year-old wants to do a Tough Mudder with me. I'm curious on the scale of challenge. How does a Tough Mudder compare to an Ironman event?
I don't know if I could accurately compare that. So if anyone who does both, don't like hold this against me, but I think an Ironman would be harder. I stayed away from Tough Mudders because I was afraid of injury. I was like, oh, I'm going to break an ankle. Nope, I still want to go run. So I was supposed to be doing my sixth full Ironman in 6 weeks, 5 weeks, but I've opted to defer it to next year because the season, I'm learning to train smart and be wise with my training now. So
I'm Zach Haptonstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investor. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, and go to our website and set up a call with our team.
Okay, so I want to double click a little bit into your work. How did you, I guess, how did you get into the church consulting? Was that always a role that you were doing, or is that was new? And then walk us through that story of what happened there.
so 6 years. This is my first time working with churches. 6 years ago, I come from a IT project management background. Kind of started in logistics, got into project management, IT project management, and then I went through a layoff. Kind of had trouble finding jobs after that, to where I was working for a local construction company. Very unhealthy work environments. Started dabbling in. I've always had an entrepreneur heart. Started dabbling in network marketing, kind of trying to do these side hustles, as they call it today. These and had success with one, to where I was able to leave corporate and just pursue it on my own. So in 2016, before I had my second child, left corporate, started building a business, and then between her, the heart failure, and everything that snowballed after, um, didn't know what to do. Didn't know if I should go back into corporate. Business wise, it wasn't really going well. Didn't feel like I had a full cup to pour into other people, so I didn't know how to really continue my own business. So I just remember letting go and just kind of my husband and I talking through, do I stay at home? I was like, I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. That's not, I want to do something. I finally, that January of 2020, I fell to my knees. I let go. I was like, all right, God, I don't know what your plan is for me. My college was all skewy. My resume's all skewy. Like, I've had this roller coaster of events. What do you want from me? Just take it and guide me, because I don't know what to do. And then I found this job, a work from home job with a ministry company, applied for it, didn't want to do their assessments, ended up doing them. Long story short, got hired as a project coordinator on their construction side. And for a while, didn't understand why they hired me, because I knew nothing about the church world. I grew up Catholic. I would hear these names, big names, and I'm like Googling, who is this guy? Who is that person? What is evangelism? Like, I don't know why they hired me. I don't know what any of this is. And I remember it was probably about 6 years ago, this time frame, sitting there thinking, why do I have this job? And I felt like God kind of nudged me. So a year prior, I was at a home church trying to help with a church plant group here. And I remember this lady telling me she had a vision of me as an administrator in the church. And I was like, no way. Like, I was project manager. I don't even really go to church. This is a home church. I grew up Catholic. They already have people that work at the church. Like, I'm not going to work at a church. And here I was a year later. I felt like God was like, hey, you remember a year ago, you're now a project administrator. You're an administrator working with churches. And I was like, and I just got chills. I was like, okay, God, I'm on your plan. I'm on your path. How do I do my job? And from there, just started learning it, had loved it. It felt like it was going to be my forever job. It was like a family. It was awesome. So that's kind of how it got started in the church consulting area. About 3.5 years in, I fell into this role of activated spaces that they had. It was a lane they were working to build. So we had different lanes: finance, building acquisitions, land acquisitions, church mergers, church financing, building projects, and then activated spaces. So partnering churches with childcare providers. The guy before me was doing it. He was our finance guy, wasn't really taking off, getting off the ground. I was tasked to help him do some research, find providers to come in. there was no process in place. That's my background. So I started building out a process, started leading calls. Next thing I know, he's not there and I'm leading it. And for the last 2.5 years was just running with it. I was closing deals, partnering churches, meeting, connecting, getting involved with communities. Colorado Springs, their leaders flew me out to be a keynote speaker last year to talk about activated spaces. Like, I finally felt like I was in my vocation of what God's plan was for me. I loved it. It was a part of my healing journey these past 2 years, really finding me, my confidence, and healing the medical trauma. And then in December, when I was unexpectedly let go, fired, um, it hurt. It was hard because I had no idea. I was up for a promotion. They were going to take the coordinator position off of my back because I was doing both part time, basically. Was training a replacement for my coordination position. And next thing I know, I was being terminated. So I decided going into this year, I was like, well, I built the lane for them. Why not rebuild it? And I can see where God was protecting me and really kind of kicked me out of my comfort zone. I loved the company. I kind of saw some areas where I felt like it wasn't super healthy with unmet promises that were constantly promised, and had some frustrations. I was actively kind of looking at what else could be out there, trying to be politically correct here too. But it became one of those where I felt like I constantly had to keep proving myself. And they kept praising me. And I was like, okay, where's the things you're promising me, the raises that you keep promising me? And I was told my commissions were supposed to be my raise and that I needed to be happy with that. And so I had some frustrations, and I felt like God was like, hey, you're meant for more. And I know you've had these thoughts. I had the ideas like, okay, I can do this, but no, I love what I'm doing. I love the people I work with. And I think he disrupted things to, one, protect me, and two, to push me outside my comfort zone. And here I am, rather than trying to find something, rebuilding what I already built for them.
That's amazing. Cool. It's amazing how like the trials that we go through in life, personally, in work, those really prepare us kind of for our next calling or our next season. So walk us through what you do now. You're talking about activated spaces, but I think probably need to define what that means for our listeners so they can maybe more broadly understand what exactly you do.
Yeah, so I partner with churches and look at their buildings. So a lot of churches sit underused throughout the week. They're active all day Sunday, usually 2 or 3 services, Sunday service, maybe kids ministry or a service on a Wednesday or Thursday night. I've noticed, or I've done research seeing that giving trends are going down. And I will say I'm thankful for the opportunity at my previous company to kind of give me the foundation I needed to start activated space or church activation strategies. But it's really taking the building that's sitting in the community and finding a need for it to turn it more into an asset. So buildings are now funding ministry, creating a space where, particularly in childcare, communities are short in childcare slots. They need spaces for kids. There's what they call the childcare crisis. And so it's having the church with the space, whether it's the kids ministry classroom, it becoming shared space, kind of like a co-working area. During the week, Monday through Friday, it is childcare, licensed childcare operated by a third-party operator to really focus on growing the center, bringing families in, and allowing then the church to reach these families on a Tuesday that you normally wouldn't see on a Sunday morning, to create that community outreach. But at the same time, now their building's more of an asset, and it helps create that funding for ministry. It goes a little bit further, and I've been in recent talks with churches. They may not have the funding to get the building ready for childcare. So how do we look at the open space that you have to take your church lobby and turn it into an event center for BNI networks to meet throughout the week, or city leaders to host a luncheon for community events that are going on? So I got a big vision for it. Right now we're focused on childcare and little things, but growing from there. So it's just taking what they currently have that's sitting empty Monday through Friday, dusting it off and generating revenue from it.
Yeah, really cool. I think there's a huge opportunity here. Are you working just in a local area, or is this nationwide, or what's the scope of who you can help?
Nationwide, I've helped so over 24 churches across the nation: California, Texas, New Jersey, Ohio, Florida. For childcare specifically, there are certain areas that have stronger markets based on what rates are, which are crazy. So, kind of focusing on some of the stronger markets for childcare just to kind of get things going. I think there could be a shift when it comes to the childcare and the cost as things kind of change in today's economy. I know that's the biggest conversation. It's not affordable, but until that gets addressed, the stronger areas with the childcare rates that are a lot higher are usually the stronger areas nationwide, if that makes sense.
Awesome, yeah. And it seems like if a church is only being used, 1 or 2 days a week, there's 5 days of opportunity there. Whether it's youth space or open areas for co-working, if you have a kitchen that can add some additional opportunities. I think coffee shops or things like that could be a huge thing. And I even think churches that have gym facilities, sports ministries or after school programs, like there's so much opportunity there. How is it a win for the church if they do form a partnership? And are you helping connect churches with organizations that need space, or what is the overall scope of the service that you provide?
Yeah, it's helping the church kind of walk through that partnership. So I'll speak to childcare because that's where I have the most familiarity. Um, so it's taking the church and saying, hey, not telling them or teaching them to operate the childcare because their main focus is ministry, and we don't want to take away from that. And I don't want to add operational burdens to the staff because a lot of church childcare centers, they do great at first, but then it operation stress. You have to hire more staff. So it's finding the right partner. There's several providers out there, whether it's a secular program or a faith-based program, to come in and partner and create a true partnership. So it's not a simple lease, triple net lease, or rental. You don't have a stranger in your building, but it's really walking the church leaders through that partnership on what does the space look like Monday through Friday? How is it going to flip back to look like Sunday service on Sundays, and then flip back for the weekday childcare, making sure that the childcare providers missions align with the church's missions and values. So there's not any awkwardness, especially in today's society. We just want to make sure there's alignment with the values that are held within the church, because there is still risk for the church, obviously, with their name being out there and it being their building. But with the childcare provider coming in, bridging that gap between the two and marrying the two worlds together, helping the church make those informed decisions, making sure the contract's kind of written in a way that protects the church, but also still, works for the provider because there is a business side for the provider as well to be able to operate successfully to bring those families in. So I kind of bridged the gap between the two, understanding more than I ever thought I needed to know about childcare, and then understanding the missions and values of the church and marrying them together.
For a church to like enter into this partnership, like I don't know if you can give like a range, but if I'm thinking of a few people I want to send this to right now, and if they had like a range of, hey, you could earn an additional X amount per month or per year, um, how would you quantify that to someone listening to this? Because obviously any type of additional resources means more ministry funding, more missionaries, more programming that you can do. Maybe it's you save up to build that addition you're trying to do at your church. So there's a lot of opportunity here, but it also needs to be profitable for the business to continue to operate too. So how do you balance like who wins in the partnership, or how do you make it a win-win?
It becomes a revenue share model typically with the childcare. And again, I'll speak to childcare because that's where I'm most seasoned in. Usually you'll see anywhere from 10 to 14% revenue share off of the top line. So they call it net revenue, but it's before all of the expenses. The metrics that I share that I have right now is the 2 dozen churches that I've helped, they're generating roughly 200K annually. So about 77 million over a 15-year period for all 24 churches for the ministry, going back into that ministry, whether it's for missions, that building project. It's going to vary between market. If your church has anywhere from 8 to 10 classrooms, you're going to see a stronger market. You want to see with childcare, 125 kids to 150 is the sweet spot as well to kind of hit those marks. And it usually takes around 2 years for a center to fill up and be completely full. So I'm going to give the range because I don't want to hold anyone come back to me and say, hey, that's wrong. Anywhere from 150 to 200,000 annually for the church back to the church, and then the childcare provider is still making their profits for their business. So they kind of balance it on their end as well. So can't really speak into how they balance it, but for the church, I mean, you can see anywhere from up to 100, 200K annually going back into the ministries.
That's amazing. Cool. Well, if you're listening to this and that sounds exciting, how do you begin a relationship with a church? Do they fill out a form on your website? Do they call you? How does someone like start the process with you?
I have a form on my website. I do a free strategy call to kind of walk through what their vision is, what their values are, what is their mission, and then kind of understand what their community needs are. Childcare is needed in a lot of communities. From there, I do kind of like a free feasibility study, understand the market. I go back to the providers to kind of connect with them and let them know what kind of space that the church has. The church will also fill out a form to kind of identify the number of classrooms, square footage, basic information. Once we get the feasibility and viability information back from the provider and high level opportunity, I provide all the information to the church to make a decision. So it's all free up front. I want them to know that it is something that's viable before committing to anything. And then from there, if it is viable and the church wants to continue down the path, then that's where we start talking about hiring me on as a consultant to walk through the rest of the process.
Man, that's really exciting. I think there's a huge opportunity in the church community to more fully utilize the space. So I think you're meeting an incredible need, and yeah, praying for you and your newly founded company. You know,
It's exciting. Can I add one thing? When you say win-win, it is definitely a win-win, not just for the church, but then also the community. Because as a mom of four, I know when found out I was pregnant with my fourth, I called daycares before I called my doctor because I knew I want to get into a good daycare. I was still on a waiting list. I had to wait 4 more months after I gave birth to get her into a center. And I really feel like churches can solve a part of the childcare crisis with the space, but it also creates that community win, not just for childcare, but also the workforce. You have a lot of families and a lot of moms. Like I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm thankful that I worked from home and that I could be at home with my kid while working before getting her to daycare. But a lot of families have to face the conversation of quitting jobs or where do I take my kid because there's not space. So it's a win-win-win for the community, for the church, and then also for the workforce to help parents now bring in both incomes to help support their family, but also get the workforce boosted within the economy as well, or the community's economy.
see churches starting these types of daycare centers just on their own, both as a means of business, but also as a means of serving the community. Have you seen that yet?
Absolutely. There's a lot of churches out there that'll start it on their own, serve the community. A lot of times, there are some very successful ones out there. And then there are some that they're barely making black. They're still in the red or they're just breaking even. And that's where having that third party partner come in to help with the operations, because it takes that burden off. The church staff wakes up every day to minister, to outreach to the community for missions, whatever that looks like for the church. They don't wake up every day to operate childcare. I mean, you can get a director in who's experienced, but you still have the operational burdens on the top level. Whereas that third party provider comes in, they wake up every day knowing how to market it, how to hit the SEOs to get their center out into the community for parents to see it, to come in, to tour, to join, and then creating that partnership for the church, then what they're good at, ministering and being able to come in and speak to those families. So I think the church has good intentions, but I think doing it on their own, depending on the church, could be a little risky because you may be spending more money than what you need to be and than what you're generating to be able to really monetize the building, but also meet that community outreach. And I can see how that can kind of blur the lines a little bit. So it can be difficult.
You said something I want to kind of go back to, kind of back to faith in that moment where you kind of cried out to God, just take it and guide me. I think there's a lot of people listening that are in their career, that are business owners themselves, that maybe feel like they hit their whatever that wall is, whether it's a health diagnosis, the loss of a loved one, a challenge in their business. What advice would you give someone who doesn't know where else to turn, In your words, you said, God, just take it and guide me. Um, what kind of advice would you give to someone who feels like they're in that moment of their life where they don't know where else to turn?
That's a good question. That's hard to answer because it's like it's blind trust. I mean, you have to walk by faith in that moment and know, okay, God, I know you're there. I know you've got a plan. I know you have a purpose. Um, you have to you have to blindly trust. I can speak into the season where I've been terrified. I mean, we have one income. We had reserves. However, not a lot of reserves because it was a very unexpected. I thought I was in my forever job. I thought I was in my dream forever job. And here we are living on not student loans, uh, loans and credit card debt, building a business. And I can tell you right now, God has shown up in it and has opened doors. Even being on this podcast, I will say is a total God moment. Um, you just have to, when you truly let go and have Him guide you, know that He does have a plan on His time, not your own. As much as you want to rush it, I was crying last week. I wanted to rush it. What's the next steps, God? Like, where is this? But you have to hold on to the promise that He promises for you to prosper. You just have to trust him and to tie into that God story. And so the advice really is to really trust and to know, like, one, Rome wasn't built in a day. That is a true saying. And God's plan is on his time, not your own. But I flew out to Colorado Springs to reconnect with some clients because I'm thankful to not have had any non-compete, non-solicit, nothing in place to hinder me from doing this. And I'm very blessed for that and thankful. And I remember I flew out early because we were supposed to get a snowstorm. So I wanted to make sure I made it out there. So I got out there early and then I was supposed to come home. So I had meetings on Tuesday, flew out on Saturday, supposed to fly home Wednesday. Because of the snowstorm that moved through the southeast, I woke up at 3 a.m., canceled flight, looking at Denver. How do I get home? I've already been gone all week. Like, my husband's home with the 3 kids. I will tell you, I took a deep breath. I said, okay, it's one more day. My husband's like, we'll make it work. I go down to the lobby of the hotel, and there happened to be a church networking group holding a conference in my hotel that I didn't see Monday because I was busy. I didn't see Tuesday because I was out reconnecting. I would never have known or connected with them had my flight not got canceled that day. And even my husband, who's a non-believer, my now soon to be believer, was like, isn't this one of your God moments? And I said, it absolutely is. And I was able to connect with a few pastors that day. Like, you just have to trust God is in it. He is faithful to the core if you trust him and you believe and you just let him guide you. It's hard. I'm not going to lie. It is very hard, but he will provide. Sorry. That just like,
Oh, that's awesome. No, it's great.
God is so good.
Amen. Well, I think a lot of our listeners can relate to those snowstorm moments where the people you need to connect with are in the hotel that you're stranded in. I was recently at an event and trying to connect with a few people and kind of not really getting through, and then ended up riding in the elevator with one of the people I was trying to connect with, and we ended up chatting. It was warm, and we ended up having coffee, and it's produced a great development of a relationship. So you just never know which doors will open and which doors will close, and when the ones open, you got to have faith to walk through them. And when they close, you have to have faith to know that there's something on the other side. God has a plan. He always gives us more than we need, to not only take care of our own needs, but also to bless other people too. When you think about impact, when you think about like what kind of impact you want your business to have, is that something you've thought about or dreamt about at all?
The impact to be for the community, but for the church. I want to see, I recently went to a conference. I want to see it create that multiplication for the church. So it's taking that next generation and creating the anchor for those kids in the faith, coming to church. Kids bring parents to church. I want that impact to see the church grow and the ministry and the word get out there and more lives saved. So you go back to the story of the woman at the well. You're meeting people on a Tuesday that you wouldn't see on a Sunday. and just being able to multiply that impact in the faith community as well as serving the community at the same time.
Amazing. Okay, Brittany, we're going to end there. With that, where's the best place for our listeners to get in touch with you?
I'm very active on LinkedIn, but churchactivationco.com is my website. And my email is brittany@churchactivationco.com. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the On the Rise podcast. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decisions, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the On the Rise podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.